Welcome back to another Pantheon community watch party for what is this again? A community watch party for the Pantheon developer stream. That's what it is. Wow. It's been a while since we've done one of these. It's been a couple weeks. And what a couple weeks it has been. I hope that first and foremost, no matter where you are, I hope that you are healthy and happy this evening. I know I am. I also know I've been very busy though lately, which is not a bad thing necessarily. But yeah, the past couple weeks or so, obviously haven't streamed at all. I was a little nervous to fire up the stream tonight because I'm like, I don't remember what I'm doing. And yeah, it's gonna be good to get back into the Pantheon flow of things because it's been a little quiet lately, for obvious reasons. But tonight we're gonna get right back into it. Hopefully I remember a couple things about this game. Oh, I actually just released a new YouTube video today, which if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out at youtube.com/BazgrimTV. Talked all about the climbing system in Pantheon, which was really a surprisingly fun video to make. Actually, it was one of those things where I was like, I should probably do a video about that. But when I actually sat down to write the script, it was one of those things kept coming up, and as I dug deeper, I kept finding even some quotes maybe that I had forgotten about or had never even read before, and so it was actually really interesting. Actually a really interesting video. So if you're at all interested in Pantheon, and if you're here tonight, I assume you are, you go check out that video because I think you'll be surprised. You might learn a thing or two about the climbing system, which is a pretty deep system actually. But enough about that. That's not what we're talking about tonight. Tonight the developers are going to be getting back on track with their newsletter update streams, and tonight, if you missed the announcement, it seems like it's going to be focused on the Shaman class tonight. So if you are planning on maining a Shaman, this is going to be good for you. The Shaman has been... We've seen the Shaman perspective from quite a few gameplay streams in the past, but this is going to be a deep dive. The teaser mentioned something about a mastery system, which I haven't heard that term. That term didn't ring a bell. I don't know if that's a system that we haven't heard anything about, or maybe it's just a name for something that we have kind of heard a little bit about. But it's going to be a nice deep dive. If you remember, a month or two ago, they really focused on the warrior class and really did a deep dive on the warrior. And so I think they're just going to kind of move through the classes one by one. And next up, apparently, is Shaman. So I think that's what we got in store for tonight. That should be starting up in just a few minutes here. And my hair is slowly getting out of control. I know that seems very vain. I will say, if my biggest worry about this whole quarantine situation is not knowing when my next haircut is going to be, I think I'm doing pretty good. First world problems. But it's irritating because I have that, this is cowlick or whatever you call it, in the back of your head, sticks up just like this. That's always, you'll see my videos, I normally keep my hair pretty short. It's also, again, if you also see some of my videos, you'll know that my real life job kind of requires my hair to be shorter. So this is starting to get abnormally long for me. So enjoy it while it lasts, because normally as soon as I get that little thing in the back of my head, go boing, time to get a haircut, and that's my sign. So we're gonna keep it together tonight. Should be starting up in just a couple minutes here. I'm gonna actually refresh their stream just to make sure I don't miss anything. How are you guys doing? I feel like I haven't even really been that active on social media lately. I haven't been able to hang out with you guys in a while. So That's what we're gonna. I'm excited. That's what we're gonna do tonight. We see Zonk. We see Aranellis, Lanier, 1976, Kelem, of course, always holding down the chat. Thanks for being here. Bernaden, Michael Abram, K-Lock is back. You know, K-Lock, you have been the reigning champion. You'll see when I pull up the watch party overlay here. You have been the reigning champion in the donation category for a long time now. Props to you. I still haven't I still haven't gotten a new couch yet, though, I have to admit. Grizzly, Ogre of Sparta. Hey guys. Sugar Woody, what is up? All right, they have 1 minute. They have 1 minute to get started, or else we riot. Michael Abrams says, buzz it at home. Cheap, easy, no worries. Yeah, I might just have to go straight buzz. Normally, I prefer to like I like to keep the sides short but leave a little length on top. I don't think I can do that by myself though. So I could just go straight buzz. I haven't done that since like high school, but you know, desperate times. That's you know the thing called the Flowbee? You remember those things? It's like this attachment that goes on the end of your vacuum, and it sucks your hair up into it and cuts it at like an even length. Now, it's basically just one of those like as seen on TV gadgets things that like, but those things are flying off the shelves now. Like people can't get enough of those because it's just so easy. Like what else are you gonna do? Callum says I wear a tight fade as well. Yeah, same here, man. My hair just doesn't look right when it starts to get too long. All about that tight fade. K-Lock says shave your head. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. Maybe someday, but all right, I'm getting an ad. That's a good sign. That means it's going to be starting up here pretty soon. They're 1 minute late. I guess we can allow that. Their pre-stream is up. Waiting. We had enough talk about hair. Let's get into it. There they are. All right.
Good day, everyone. David, how are you today?
I am excellent. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the April 2nd, 2020 Pantheon Developer Stream.
Shaved. Look at that.
I am your host, senior content creator, David Schlau, a.k.a. Ronik. With me is our producer, Mr. Ben Dean.
Hey.
And our creative director, a cleanly shaven.
I was going to say, Joppa looks like 10 years younger.
Thank you, David.
Yes. Today we're going to be talking about the Shaman, or Shaman, depending on how you pronounce it, its abilities, and how the class mastery system will affect all those. But first, Ben, I think you have a few words you want to say.
Yeah. So before we start, I just wanted to address the thing that's on everyone's mind, obviously, in these trying days today, is COVID-19. As many of you know, Visionary Realms has been working remotely for quite some time now. We've employed a lot of remote team members. We have members in Australia, Canada, from coast to coast in the US, and also in Europe. Working remotely has been a daily part of our lives here at Visionary Realms for several years. While certainly things are unprecedented on a global scale, Visionary Realms has been able to continue development on Pantheon. We still continue to meet regularly. We have our daily work sessions. We have our weekly and daily even meetings remotely. And we consider ourselves fortunate that we've had the infrastructure and practice doing this, that we're able to continue on with Pantheon with minimal slowdowns in production. That being said, we do want to extend our thoughts out to everyone out there in these trying times. We know that it's difficult for many, and we want to express our appreciation for you being with us here tonight. So please stay safe.
Well
Back
said.
to you, Dave.
I think you pretty much summed it up for everybody. We really appreciate our fans, and thoughts and love to everybody out there. I think we'll get right into the shaman stuff here.
Right on.
Take it away, David. No, it's exciting to be here, guys. This is the kind of stream that we really look forward to doing. Gives us a chance to do a good spotlight into the classes, and obviously today we're focusing on the shaman. But there's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to get to talk about today, as we're taking more of a closer, direct, detailed look at the ability arsenal for the shaman, both how it's evolved since the initial class design releases, and also it's going to give us an opportunity to talk about a few of our different combat systems and how they relate to the shaman and the shaman abilities specifically, but also just some insight into how combat in Pantheon will look for the other classes as well. A big keyword for today is going to be energy, and you've probably heard us talk before many times over about it's very much a part of our design goal to create a combat system where classes are able to key off of what each other are doing. And so that not only goes for the shaman in another class, but also just the shaman, how the shaman's able to synergize with itself, depending on what abilities it's using, what effects, what conditions it's causing on the target. So we're going to get into that a little bit today, and we're here in our little test bed area, and Ben is going to be kind of my not my guinea pig, but you're gonna
puppet.
We're streaming from your screen, so I'm going to be kind of telling him what to do, what abilities to use, and as we do that, we're going to take a look at kind of the finer details, and I'll explain a little bit of what you're seeing.
Ready to go in game
now? Do you want to go ahead and get us pulled up here on
look at this.
the game screen?
We're actually in game in the
I'll say a little bit just in general about the shaman.
Look at that.
The shaman is one of the three primary healer classes in Pantheon. Most of you know by now that our goal is to create within the different archetypes a mutual viability. We want the healers to all be able to do that role. Do that role in a group, do that role in a raid. We want the healers to all be mutually viable in whatever tier of content. But at the same time, we've also said that we're very comfortable with, and I would even say part of our intentional design is to also push these healers into their different fortes or their different area of expertise, and not in the sense of like a spec to your class, but more in a sense of where they individually shine. And so we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. But for the shaman in general, this is a very, very versatile, very adaptive healing class. They specialize in a lot of overtime abilities, and their healing is where you'll see a lot of that. So I thought we could start with the healing abilities today. There are three different abilities or ability lines that make up kind of the core of the shaman healing arsenal, and we're going to focus on those first. The first ability in that arsenal is the mantle line, and this is a line of abilities that is kind of the bread and butter heal over time spell of the shaman. You're going to be able to sprinkle that around on the different members of your group. Keep those hots ticking, as the fight goes on, and they're very quick cast, very quick recovery type heals that are meant to kind of keep that constant healing presence on your group. So let's go ahead and get that one fired around, and we're going to be using some different commands today to set our health to different levels, set our mana to different levels, just to kind of help visualize what these different abilities are doing. I'm on a shaman as well, so I'm going to kind of be doing the same thing here, casting it on me, casting it on Ben, casting it on David, keep him from dying. But this is kind of where it all starts for the Shaman, as that fundamental heal over time. Before we go any deeper, I want to open up the codex, and I want to call your attention to a couple of things. One of the decisions that we've made relatively recently is to do away with what is known as downranking. Downranking, if you're not familiar with that concept, is when, let's say, just for the ease of example, you start with an ability at rank 1. And once you get high enough level to get the second rank of that ability, you keep rank 1, but you also have rank 2. And so now you have rank 1 heal, rank 2 heal, and then rank 3 heal. And you can drag each of those ranks individually down to your bar and use them. You can use all of them if you want to. We've done away with that, and there's some reasons for that. And maybe cluttered. We can get into that in another time. Yep. What, did I hear something?
Yeah, I said that gets kind of cluttered.
It gets super cluttered. Yeah, that's right. One of the things you'll see, even if you want to, I don't know if you've kind of moved back and forth on your pages or not, Ben, but even from the last stream that we did with Co, you can tell how much less is filling up this book. And we actually have some pretty exciting redesign of the codex coming up to account for the fact that there's really no need for a whole lot of pages when, classes at most are going to have, maybe 20 or 30 different abilities in total. And so we have some really cool plans for that right-hand side of the book, where you're going to be able to see a lot more of the actual details of the ability that you have selected. You're going to be able to even set up some text macros for the individual abilities on that right-hand side, without having to have all of these different text macros on a hotbar somewhere that relate to the individual abilities you're wanting to. You can actually go into the ability in your spellbook and say, when I click this ability to cast it, I want it to say this in this chat channel. And when the ability lands, I want it to say this in this chat channel. And so you'll be able to handle checking up on all the information, the details about the ability, the mana cost, range, how the recast time, the cooldown, the global cooldown, the damage type, all those different types of details, be able to set those macros. And then it's also where you will engage in the mastery system for abilities, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. All on that right-handed side. And so the left-hand side, you'll have your abilities. You'll be able to scroll up and down there and use the search filter and whatnot. The right-hand side will be where you'll interact with those abilities and see all the pertinent info. Let's dig into the mastery system. I apologize in advance, too. I feel like I'm already talking really fast, and so there's going to be a lot of information on this stream, and you may need to rewatch it a few times, but I want to try to keep our overall time down.
That's okay.
We've hinted at this a little bit. What is the mastery system? When we first introduced the concept of being able to modify abilities, and we showed kind of these in the spellbook, you see it here with the little kind of empty little pips below the different abilities. We referred to it as ability modification. And that was just kind of a temporary name for what we hadn't yet announced, which is the mastery system. The mastery system is going to be a constant companion to you in Pantheon, meaning that from level 1, even displayed in your inventory, you're going to see your normal experience bar. You're also going to see a mastery bar. And from the very first level, you're going to begin earning mastery experience through lots of different means in the game. That bar, when it fills completely, instead of gaining a level, you're going to gain a mastery point. And that's what you see depicted there at the top of the codex, that little sphere. That's a mastery point. And mastery points are what you're spending, what you're investing into these abilities to upgrade them. That's one facet of the mastery system. The other facet is going to be much more akin to your alternate advancement type system, where you're needing to make the decision as a player: am I going to spend these mastery points in my abilities to upgrade them to the next tiers and eventually max them out, or am I going to be spending these mastery points in the greater mastery system, where I'm unlocking incremental improvements, advantages to my character as a whole. There's going to be lots of tie-in, to things like the progeny system through mastery, and lots of really interesting ways to accumulate mastery points as well, which we'll be talking about in more detail soon. So I wanted to say a quick spiel about the mastery system and just kind of connect the dots that these points that we're spending are mastery points, and it's going to be up to you as the player to decide, am I going to invest these in my abilities, invest them in the greater mastery system, and when am I going to do which thing, and it's going to give you a lot of decisions to make and options and how you want to advance your character horizontally and not just vertically through levels and gear. So let's go and dive in. I think the best way to do this is to go through several of these abilities and walk through the upgrade process, see what the different upgrade effects are, and then play them out here in game. And we're going to start with this first spell here, the Mantle of the Deep. So let's go ahead and open the spell book. Let's put let's start throwing some mastery points into those.
All right, so the first one is healing effects gain a 10% chance to cure poisons.
Excellent.
I'll add that. Second one is increase initial healing component by 100%.
Nice. And let's go ahead and for some of these, I think that would be a good one, for example, to kind of try out. So we've got.
What I'll do is I'll cast it first without it, and then I'll add it, and then we'll see the.
Yep.
All right, so knock my health down to 10%. Feel like Ronick. And casting. So we see 219, 151. Seems
there's a little countdown on the hotbar. Do you see that when you use an ability?
All right, so now we'll upgrade it.
For the cooldowns.
Initial healing by 100%. Did you want to touch quickly on the spell power?
Yes, I do. Let's go ahead. I want you to hit the deep stats there. Okay. Then let's pull that up. We mentioned I can't even remember now when it was that we talked about the stat work that we were doing. It may have been on the Pantheon Plus interview. It may have been on the dev stream before that. But we've been doing a lot of work on our stat system. And
somebody screenshot this.
What you see here really as of right now is kind of the whole gamut, the whole array of the different skills and the different stats and the different attributes that currently are at work in Pantheon.
Just a couple.
What?
Yeah, there's just a couple.
Scrolls too? Jesus.
You can go ahead and close that up now because you can just pause it at this point and go back and rewind and pause it. But basically, what we wanted to describe here, though, is that while we've introduced several new stats over the last few months, stats that we've planned on for some time, and because of our emphasis on combat right now and the abilities and the different systems related to combat, we've been bringing all of these online and working through the implementation, the tuning, and just kind of the proliferation of those things throughout the game. And one of the things you're going to see here is that while spell power, for example, is working, it is not reflected in the tooltips. So that's one of the things that's on the docket here in the short term, is to get all the tooltips automatically populating with those numbers. And so when the tooltip is going to tell you how much healing you're going to do, it's going to take into account the base amount of healing that the ability is set up to have, and then it's going to include in that not only your other stats like spell power, for example, but it's also going to intelligently factor in any buffs you have on you at the time, consumables, things like that, to give you a kind of a direct in the moment read on exactly how much healing you should expect from this ability or damage or whatever the effect may be. But that's why you're seeing some discrepancy between, this says it increases it by 100%. It does, but it's increasing the base amount of the ability by 100%. It's not yet in the tooltip factoring in the the spell power, nor is spell power actually factoring into the tooltip, and vice versa. So we want to move to our second ability here.
Well, actually, we'll just show the difference now.
Awesome, as long
so
as
with
you
all that
don't
explained,
need to know exactly
we're supposed to get 100%
every single one of those does.
Increase. What did we do last time? It was 219 on the initial cast, and now we'll see that it hits for 588. So we got
that was a crit, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. That was a crit. Like that's not 100%. All right, let's click that off and try that again. Let's not crit this time. And boom, 294.
There you go. All right, let's go ahead and drop the next pip in. This one's exciting. So we talked about how the Shaman is a very overtime focused class. Lots of healing over time. The second line of abilities is called is the hand line. The hand of Animus, I think, is what we have here and currently. When we put that third pip into Mantle of the Deep, it is going to unlock Surging Power. It's going to give your mantle spells 50% chance to proc Surging Power. And when Surging Power is active, it's going to cause your hand spells over the period of time while Surging Power is active to be instant cast. And so this is a really cool ability to, a really cool mastery upgrade that is going to allow shamans to kind of start stepping into more of that single target healing ability. It's going to, as we've been testing it internally, it's kind of opened up a whole new world into what shamans are able to do in kind of those really critical situations where some of that strong single target healing is needed. When you're able to fire off those direct healing hand spells without any cast time, it really does wonders for that throughput in those situations. So let's go ahead and see that in action.
All right, so I've upgraded it.
Some guy in chat named Sacred happened to notice that the pips cost different amounts, each time. That's something to take a look at and talk about too.
All right, so casting Mantle of the Deep, and then I get an instant cast of Hand of
I'd be curious to hear what the
normally Hand of Animus takes a
XP
rate
for the
you can cast it without
XP
the Surging Power proc on, and just
is
kind of show
that
the
going to
difference.
come? I would hope that comes faster than
power, instant cast.
a level, but it's
Without Surging Power.
Is it always going to be 3 mastery points per level, or is it going to be variable? It sounds like there's going to be different ways to get mastery.
And then the third
XP,
ability
so
in this healing kit is the Echo line, and this is the group-based heal over time. So once shaman are high enough level to attain this spell, this is really kind of rounding out their proficiency in that group-oriented and that healing over time-oriented healing style. All three of these abilities can also stack, and I'm just realizing we didn't really talk about the hand line. So let's pull that one up, and let's go ahead and put all three of the mastery, unlock all three of those mastery levels. And while you're doing that, the comment that Sacred mentioned earlier, yes. So as of right now, and we are still in pre-alpha. We are still, anticipating with the upcoming testing phases, doing some deeper, looking at things like what I'm about to say. But for right now, these upgrades are not 1, 2, 3. It's not one mastery point to unlock the first mastery level, then another mastery point for the second, and then a third for the third. They're actually tiered in terms of the cost. So the first point of each ability is always 1 mastery point. The second level of mastery for the ability costs 4 mastery points, and then the third and final one costs 9. And so you are kind of digging ever deeper into these as you unlock them. And that's intentional because we want the decision of which abilities you go kind of all in on mastery first, and what order you do that to be meaningful. And like we've said before, that we do plan to have, I guess what you would think of as like a respec option for these, most likely just costing some coin and probably an increasing cost every time you do so.
Well, you also don't want level 1s running around with mastered spells, like having all the mastery levels.
But I think it's also important to talk a little bit, CP, about what we brought up earlier today, which was you're not going to see in this particular case with the with the mastery stuff here, specializations. Everything eventually will come to you will have, right? It's just the order in which you do them.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a specialization based talent system. At first glance, it might look that way or feel that way, but the goal with mastery is really just that. It's the concept of the slow and steady investment in all kinds of different horizontal aspects until you have fully realized your full potential. When you've mastered all of your abilities and you've mastered the myriad of different ways, to improve your character through the greater mastery system, it is meant to be something that over time players are able to achieve. Now, that being said, once we were able to start kind of talking a little bit more in detail and showing a little bit more fully the concept of epic abilities, there is some soft specialization opportunities there that we're exploring because, who doesn't like the feeling of being able to make decisions that kind of really do alter some of the aspects of your class and how you play. But Pantheon has always and will continue to be built fundamentally on this idea of kind of a non-shifting class identity where, a warrior is a warrior is a warrior. And but there's going to be major differences between, how different warriors choose not only to spend their points, because, these mastery points are not the easiest things in the world to come by. And so there is going to be somewhat of an art and a science to what you upgrade and when you upgrade and how much you upgrade this thing and that thing. But there's also going to be several ways to accumulate mastery points that are not simply leveling or grinding. And so, there will be ways to accelerate that process.
That's what I was wondering.
To kind of create some variability in different players and how quickly they're able to unlock different things. A level 30 shaman, two different people playing level 30 shamans could have at that point, a pretty large discrepancy between how many abilities they've unlocked, either because they've chosen to invest in the greater mastery system instead of abilities, or because they've simply, put more time into accumulating mastery points in some of these additional ways. So again, it's not a specialization system. It is a kind of an overtime unlocking of your true potential. And then, of course, when you get to the LAS, the limited action set, with the ability loadouts, then that's going to give you and we're going to talk about that in a little more detail when we get to some of these other abilities that really speak to what kind of soft specialization that you can bring into each encounter that you're moving into based on what loadout that you've chosen, how that is synergizing with the abilities that you have available to you personally, and then also how that's synergizing with the other abilities and the other players in your group. So lots of information there. Let's get back to the abilities. So we've got the hand line. Have we shown the mastery upgrades for the hand line?
Well, yeah. I sort of expanded upon it while we were going. I can't show it now, but
it's all good.
Yeah, it was on the screen for a little while we were operating.
All good. So I started talking about earlier the Echo line. This is the third in the line of healing abilities, and again, this is just a group pot. We can go ahead and we can go ahead and upgrade that one fully. And the last thing I want to call out about these healing abilities for the shaman is that this is part of that interclass synergy, where that mantle hot is that is kind of ticking away on different targets. Both the hand and the Echo line of abilities are going to be sniffing for that effect. You can see in the tooltip, Ben, if you're able to hover over the first healing ability there, you'll see in the tooltip that it's a water boon. The shaman abilities are broken up into boons and banes to distinguish between the magic school based beneficial and detrimental spells, and then the greater versions of some of the spells are called oaths and curses, and they're all based on the different magic types of the shaman. So you've got water boons, fire, wind, earth, ancestral, and animus boons, and then banes of all those types as well. So for these heals being water-based abilities, that base hot, the mantle hot, is a water boon, and both the hand and the echo are looking for a water boon to be active, and if it is, it's going to amplify their effect. And in fact, as you upgrade the hand and the echo abilities through mastery, it's actually going to increase that amplification effect. For the echo line, as much as 50%. So you're going to see a 50% increase in your healing just by having a water boon active on your target. And so it creates some strategic kind of application of heals for the shaman, to want to always be trying to maximize the amount of healing they're going to get out of those other two healing abilities. Have you seen any question come up about any of these before we move on to some of the different ability types?
I asked them to hold the questions off till the end, so
okay,
just figured
all
it'd
good.
be easier.
Yeah, all good. Okay, well let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to put up the two of the dot spells now. Let's go ahead and throw the Animus dot on there. Should be the sting of the silver wasp, and then we'll put up the fire dot as well, the molten crown. One of the things I love about the shaman class, again, we mentioned like the versatility of this class. They're very adaptive, and one of the things that I personally really enjoy about them is their offensive capability as well, both through the dots that they have, the nukes that they have, and then I would consider things like some of their debuffing as well through slowing, and some of their attribute debuffs to be pretty aggressive, offensively focused abilities. They're able to put a lot of offensive pressure on targets, which, one of the questions I saw coming into this stream was, basically like, what makes a shaman any better than, something like a cleric or, I think the cool thing about the shaman is that, no, I remember now what the question was. It was, is it recommended to bring more than one priest into a group? And I'll go ahead and answer now and just say it's not that it's recommended. It's more that it's viable. I think that's the key distinction, is that when you have a shaman who's able to come into a group with a loadout focused on healing, focused on defense, focused on bolstering and kind of reinforcing the party, and then you have a shaman that's able to come in focused on that offensive pressure, at debuffing, crippling, kind of reducing the fortitude and the effectiveness of the target, then you really have two extremely viable roles being filled by the same class. And that's something that we're excited to see. But so we have these two dots on here. These shaman being able to stack 2-3 dots on a target at a time. They actually have a passive called Keeper of Elemental Mysteries that gives you a bonus to your healing based on how many active effects you have on offensive targets that are from the different schools of magic. So you can have up to a 10% bonus to your healing if you have an active effect from each of the different magic schools on an offensive target, which again just kind of is rewarding that offensive aspect of the shaman. And when they find ways to weave those things into their combat. Let's go ahead and start attacking this Torn here.
I'm just gonna turn my hate off. Forgot about that. All right, here we go.
Hacks.
Oh, he resisted. There he goes.
Nice. So we'll go through the pips, the mastery points. Yep, always call them pips. So as you progress in these dots are going to be obviously a way of applying that offensive pressure to the targets. But you're going to start getting into some of the resistance manipulation aspects of the Shaman. Resistances are going to play a pretty big role in Pantheon, not only in terms of actual, outright resists like we saw there at the beginning, but partial resists as well. And so your magic damage being determined by, the base damage of the ability, or spell power, but it's also got to go through that resistance layer on the target. And so bringing those resistances down is going to be really important. And the resistances that the Shaman specializes in manipulating are fire, nature, and poison, one that you just put on there. And that's what we're seeing here with the Animus line, is that it's actually reducing the poison resistance of the target, and the Shaman's Animus line is built around poison damage. So the cool thing about these mastery upgrades is that as you kind of invest into these lines, it's not only going to start reducing that type of resistance on the target, but it's going to start increasing your resistance to that same magic type. So as you use Sting of the Silver Wasp in this Animus line, you're going to be able to debuff that resistance on the target, buff it on yourself. So let's go ahead and upgrade, and let's walk through all three of the upgrades on this ability.
Okay. Well, I went ahead. So the first one increased your or reduced your target's poison resistance by 2, and increases your personal resistance by 2. The second one was reduces mana cost by 20%, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And now we're on the third one, which says reduce target's poison resistance by 4, increases your group's resistance poison by 4. So it actually changed to a group.
Yep. So that's right. With this final mastery upgrade, now not only are you increasing the resistances reduced and the resistance gained, but you're also now making it a group-wide effect. So that +4 poison resistance is being applied to the group as a whole.
Right on.
Very cool.
Needed.
Mm-hmm.
And there we see the poison resistance on our buff bar. +4 poison resistance. If I click on Java,
yep.
I'll see he's got the same thing. And
now let's go ahead and move to the fire ability. And this is the Molten Crown. So the 3 dots are similar in that, again, they're responding directly to certain types of magic. The crown line being fire. And let's go ahead and walk through the pips for this.
Okay, so the first one reduces target's fire resistance by 2, increases your fire resistance by 2.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is reduces target's fire resistance by 4, increases your group's fire resistance by 4, again going to the group.
Yep. So now here on the second upgrade tier of this fire spell, we have what we saw in the Animus one with the 4+4, and now it being applied to the group. And now as we move to the final mastery upgrade, let's go ahead and pull that one up.
Gains Windswept.
Awesome. So we're going to camp on this one for a second and kind of dig into what this means. Let's go ahead and find the ability Headwinds in your codex and drag that onto the bar. That is a utility ability.
Done.
So if you hover over Headwinds, you see a strong gust of wind that causes the windswept state for 4 seconds. This is one of the first times that we're talking directly about this concept of state manipulation, if you will. Applying what we would think of as a state of being. You are being buffeted by strong winds. That's the state of being you're in. It's not dealing damage. It's not reducing any kind of statistical situation on the target. It's not altering anything statistically on you. It is simply putting the target into a state of being. And the reason that that's significant is because in that specific state of being, you are going to unlock a myriad of different synergies with your own abilities and with the abilities of other classes. What we've just seen here with the Molten Crown ability is that as you've invested all the mastery points to unlock that 3rd tier, now you have an advantage against the windswept state. and you are able to essentially set yourself up for that combination by applying headwinds and then capitalizing on that with your Molten Crown ability. So what would be cool would be to cast Molten Crown on the target by itself. Even with the three levels, we see it's ticking for its damage. It's applying the buff to us. But now if we cast headwinds on the target, if we put the target into that state, and then we cast Molten Crown right afterwards, while that effect is active, then we're going to see what that advantage looks like.
I burned my opportunity. I didn't cast the same enough, so we have a 16-second.
And type /refresh.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Let me do something.
That's a cool idea, though. Yeah, because like the wind fuels the fire.
No, it still didn't.
You gotta apply Windswept first.
No, but you see, the ability Headwinds is not ready.
Oh, did you type /refresh?
Yeah, I did, and it refreshed the icon, but it didn't refresh the actual.
Gotcha,
anyway, we got it that time.
Okay, so, but the point here being that what happened when those things did come together is you saw that you got a massive crit on the front of that ability, and essentially what happens is the way that Molten Crown takes advantage of Windswept is it takes all of the damage that it would have done in its dot, in the damage over time it was prepared to do. It front loads that in a new direct damage component that's guaranteed to crit. And so essentially you have a combination here where, because there's all these winds blowing around the target, when you introduce flame to a strong oxygenated environment, that flame plumes and explodes, and you get this massive, punch of damage. That's an example of an interclass synergy where the shaman is able to set themselves up for a greater type of effect. You're also going to see it with cross-class synergy as well. So, for example, one of the ones I love is the summoner, because the summoner is able to summon, these rocks and this kind of cloud of debris. And if the target is windswept, if they're in a windswept state, and the summoner kind of piles this debris onto the target while they're in that state, that debris is going to get accelerated. There's going to be a much harder hit, and you're actually going to essentially stun the target for a period of time. Going to work as an incapacitate effect. And it's just one of many different combinations and synergies that honestly we are expecting and excited to see players kind of work these things out. There is a level of logic to them. But in some cases, as you can in fantasy games, it's fun to kind of push some of those believable boundaries a little bit. And so there's going to be so many different things to discover in terms of what players are able to do. What's cool even about Headwinds is that not only does Molten Crown, your fire dot line, get an advantage to the windswept state, but as you upgrade Headwinds, you're actually going to be able to get an advantage to the burning state as well, because fire and wind are always kind of pushing each other, amplifying each other along. And so won't go into detail on that, but really exciting to be able to kind of talk about and start showing a little bit of the that kind of synergy. And so one of the things when we talk about the strategy behind the limited action set is that there's a period of considering what it is that you need available to you, what it is that you are kind of going into battle with. But it's not just what can my abilities do. Do I have a root? Do I have a stun? Do I have a snare? Do I have an interrupt? Do I have a silence? Do I have all of the keys of my arsenal? But it's learning the game. It's understanding, like, if I don't have a root readily available, what abilities do I have that can synergize with either other abilities that I have to create those effects, or how can I synergize with this other class in my group? I'm a shaman. I know there's a summoner in my group. I know we have a way to cover the ability to stun, to interrupt through the combination of these abilities. And we're really excited just to see the depth that brings to a different way of thinking about combat, approaching different combat situations. And maybe more importantly than anything else, the ways that players are able to respond to unforeseen events by kind of digging deep into secondary and tertiary effects of their abilities when combined in unique ways.
Chris, if this was your first time watching a Pantheon,
I feel like combat needs that level of
fan
depth
how
and complexity.
do you gain class
combos
mastery
just feel so good. So that's one of the coolest things that they've mentioned in a while.
The kind of the basic bread and butter way of gaining mastery points is through essentially leveling up. Every time you level, in starting at level 1, when you hit level 2, you're going to get a mastery point. That ding will net you a mastery point. But you also have the mastery bar in your inventory, and that mastery bar is going to fill up a lot slower than your experience bar. You might not see your first mastery point from mastery experience until, level 10-ish or so. But as normal experience gain slows, the higher and higher level you get, that mastery bar will most likely stay static in terms of the amount of experience needed. And you'll start seeing those mastery points accumulate. Even at higher levels, you'll probably be getting 2, 3, 4 mastery points a level at that stage. So we have kind of a target goal of how many mastery points we expect or want players to be able to accumulate through leveling by the time they reach 50. In addition to that, there are going to be several quests throughout the game that award mastery points for completion. There's going to be most likely a couple of NPCs that are very rare, very, very rare. And think of them almost as like treasure goblins in Diablo kind of thing, where the excitement of finding one of those is that killing one will net you like a full bar of mastery experience. And so be a lot of fun, to kind of find one of those running around. There's also going to be, again, very, very rare drop items called mastery shards that you probably won't start seeing on mobs until a certain level. Let's say level 20, an NPC level 20 and above would have a very, very small chance to drop a mastery shard. And after accumulating 4 of those, you could bring those to a crafter, and they would be able to kind of fashion those together into a mastery crystal. And in a very, 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 very rare chance of NPCs dropping a fully intact mastery crystal. Once you have a mastery crystal, you can either sell that to another player, or you can yourself bring it to a special NPC that will be in all the major cities and in certain villages and outposts that will exchange that mastery crystal for a mastery point. And so you'll be able to accumulate mastery outside of leveling, at least in those 2 ways. There's a few more we might talk about more down the road, but at least 2 additional ways you can accumulate those as you go.
Guys, I hate to be the voice of doom. We're going to have to cut back on the questions just for a little bit. We are running close to time, so I want to make sure that we can get through these spells as well. So.
How long have we been going already?
45 minutes, sir. 45
Doom.
minutes.
45 minutes? Yeah. No way.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So slow next.
Yeah, and I think at this point, I think just showing off some more of the mastery upgrade paths. Kind of letting everybody see. Yeah. Peer a little bit more deeply into.
It's interesting that he mentioned being able to
what these are going to do as we go along.
Those to other
I think
players.
Fireclaw would be a cool one to show.
I think it's cool that it involves
Chrono Burn would be a cool one to show.
It can involve crafters, but
yeah,
that part seems weird. I like everything else though.
I don't know. We could talk about Cleansing Flame a little bit. Actually, I'll go ahead. You might want to get Cleansing Flame on your bar because I'm about to blast you with some something fun here.
Oh!
You didn't do it fast enough.
Chop is ticking me for 20 points of non-melee damage.
If you take too long, I'm going to hit you with a disease too.
You want me to clean? Oh, you wanted me to cast Cleansing Flame? Okay. Well.
Yep.
See, I didn't catch that. All right.
So Cleansing Flame, I can just kind of talk through some of these, but Cleansing Flame is going to remove a poison effect. And then once it's fully upgraded, you're also going to be able to cleanse a disease effect as well. So once Cleansing Flame is fully upgraded, you'll be able to remove a poison and disease effect from your entire group as you upgrade it. And you can probably see maybe at this point a little bit of a trend there in that several of abilities, especially the buff types of abilities, through the mastery upgrades, you're going to be able to, in many cases, extend the duration. The standard duration for buffs as of right now is 40 minutes, and then mastery, you'll be able to extend that up to an hour through the direct ability mastery, and then through the greater mastery system, you might even be able to extend it beyond that as well. But then you see many of them also being converted to group buffs through the mastery upgrades.
You want to hit me with the disease and poison again?
You've already got disease on you, but yeah, let me hit you with poison too.
No, I took the disease off.
Just because it's fun. Oh.
There we go.
I'm going to hit, hold on, let me hit Ronick too.
No.
Oh, yeah.
You won't be able to save me.
Let me just keep hitting Ronick here.
I've already upgraded to full, so now my cleansing flame does heals both
Let me just
poison
hit
and
Ronick
disease.
here a little bit. Hold on. Hold on. Okay.
You gotta show me how to use this on Convo.
And instantly cured.
Sweet. No, you still got a poison on you. What are you doing? Oh no, I keep looking at the stream, and it's I should not do that. I feel like that catches me every time. I'm like, what are you?
Poison.
Okay.
What's wrong with you? Let me cast that again.
Yeah.
We're not set. Let's loop. No, stop.
No, that was on purpose. All right, so we throw Fireclaw up. I like Fireclaw. So Fireclaw is giving you, your fire resistance. But once you get Fireclaw fully upgraded, it actually is going to be a very, very powerful cool. buff for your melee classes and your range classes, because it actually grants a weapon proc called Strike of the Fireclaw, which is just a really nice direct damage proc on melee and range attacks. So if you get that fully upgraded and you get that cast on the group, I'll come up here and demonstrate on Torn Health while we're talking. See if I can blast him a few
second
times.
mastery point, as Chris was saying, extend to 1 hour. Third one grants melee and range weapon proc, Strike of the Fire Claw. Dun, 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 dun. Alright, so here comes the buff. It's a group buff. It's gonna last an hour. There's the proc.
Yeah, we've got the fire based. Say again?
Now you're good. Go ahead.
We take a look at Chrono Burn as well. So basically, the shaman, by kind of sending their physical self into the past and their spiritual self into the future, at the moment that they rematerialize, they're essentially going to lose health, sacrifice health in exchange for mana. And so this is in starting to speak a little bit to, kind of the mana management capability of the shaman. I know there's a question on the forums about what, with Vision being focused on spell haste, would it make more sense for it to be focused on, something like mana regeneration? And the reality is, with Chrono Burn, and then also the passive that shamans have to be able to retain their health and mana regeneration in combat, as they do out of combat, there is already just a very strong degree of mana replenishment. And
it basically is like cannibalized.
Not wanting to just continue to add to that,
like a rebranded cannibalized.
Give them more of, really, to help kind of facilitate that single target direct healing situation through the spell haste Vision. Which, again, if you're not familiar with Vision, you can see there in the top left on the nameplate, you've got as your healing spells. It's not currently decaying; it will outside of combat. But as you heal, as you effectively heal your target, a percentage of that effective healing will feed into that resource, and as that eye opens further and further, it's meant to reflect, getting closer to having your vision meter, if you will, being full. And once that's all the way full, your spell haste is going to increase by 20%, and will increase, steadily all the way up to that 20% point. But yeah, I mean, we've got other abilities that we could look at,
well,
but I think
let's level up Chrono Burn here.
Yep.
So first mastery's cooldown reduced by 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's all. And also, so the way this ability works is in its kind of base form, it's exchanging health for mana, but it's doing it over 3 seconds, over a 3 second time period. So and it's got I believe a 6 second cooldown innately. So the first mastery upgrade is going to reduce that cooldown by 2 seconds. Yep.
Second one's convert to effect to instant, so you don't have to wait.
Converts
anymore.
the effect of the ability to instant, so it's not going to be over a 3 second duration. The health and mana exchange is going to happen instantly as the ability is cast. Yep.
And then the third one
and
is
then the third pip,
an additional 2 seconds.
Additional 2 seconds. So once this ability is fully upgraded, you're going to have a very consistent, very rhythmic, very available health mana conversion.
Which is a lot quicker than just standing there waiting for your mana to regenerate.
Yeah, that's actually crazy fast.
Cool.
While we're watching this, I just want to remind everybody, we have different types of streams. Sometimes we're going to have a gameplay stream. Sometimes we'll have some class-specific ones like this. Other times we'll be focusing on stuff like the UI. This one obviously is a very class-specific stream, and we'll be showing some new zones and other things in the future. So hang tight.
So one of the last things we haven't shown yet is Cinder Smog.
Yes. All right. So Cinder Smog, this is just a very iconic ability for the Shaman, and that is the slow, the melee attack speed slow. And so this is we can just walk through the mastery upgrades for this and kind of show it off. But when we get to the third upgrade, you're going to see the windswept advantage again. And I'm not going to spoil what the advantage is, but it's something that my hope is after this stream, and as we continue to do these kind of class spotlight streams, you're going to see more and more that premise of how important conditions, how important states of being are going to be, and the way that abilities are going to essentially be staging or setting things up for different combinations from different classes, and even combinations for yourself to take advantage of.
I'm gonna shoehorn in some of the questions while we're kind of going.
Let's talk about Age Walker's Companion for a second, and also Age Walker's Gift, and kind of the whole Shaman Resurrect.
Ronak got shut down.
Situation, because there's been a lot of kind of evolution of those abilities and how they work, and I want to speak to that a little bit. The Shaman pet, the Age Walker's Companion, as we've detailed on the site, this is something that the Shaman begins with as a cub, essentially, in the form of a spirit wolf cub or spirit bear cub. And the first 10 levels, it's not gonna do anything, but essentially be kind of a almost like a vanity pet that just is by your side and is meant to reflect kind of that process of bond creation with the spirit companion. And at level 10, the Shaman is going to be able to embark on a quest that is kind of a coming of age for that spirit companion, where they kind of take on their adult form and begin to actually interact with the environment, interact in combat, things like that, and for all intents and purposes function as a what you would expect for a pet to function as. Now, the cool thing about this is that you as a Shaman have the ability to decide whether your pet is present in its physical form or its spiritual form. When it is in its physical form, it exists as what you would expect with a pet, meaning that it will have commands that it can follow. You can send it into combat. It will be, a form of DPS contribution for you. Not talking anywhere near the level of, a summoner, and not, a necromancer or anything like that. But it will certainly contribute to your DPS.
Necro players'
but
ears just
also, one of the key things is instead of Agewalker's Gift activating on the event of your death as a shaman and being kind of a post-death passive that activates, you will be able to choose to sacrifice your pet to enter into that state. But your pet must be out in its physical form to do so. And so that's how we've solved for kind of that cumbersome approach to the passive of Agewalker's Gift. The actual effect of Agewalker's Gift will be the same. You will enter into kind of that spiritual form. You'll be able to, move around without inciting attention from enemies. You'll be able to drag corpses. You'll be able to use Part the Veil in that state, and even down to the effect on your defensive target when Agewalker's Gift ends. All of that will remain the same. It's simply the mechanism by which you enter that state is now a manual decision by the player to sacrifice their pet to do so. On the same token, the Ancient Focus passive is what you will gain when your pet is in its spiritual form. So Shaman is not going to have Ancient Focus on all the time as originally intended. It's actually going to, we've altered that to now also tie that to the pet. And so the Shaman really is making that conscious decision to say, I want my pet in its spiritual form. In that state, it's providing me that out of combat level of regeneration for my health and my mana. But when I choose to put it into its physical form, now I can use it to interact with enemies. Now I can use it to enter the Agewalker's Gift state. And that's essentially how the pet and the Agewalker's Gift and the Ancient Focus passives are going to all work together. So just wanted to take this opportunity to clarify lots of little things with that. So with that, yes, let's take some questions.
All right. We'll take a few here that were on the forum. Vandrind wanted to know, will the Shaman have a resurrect that returns XP like the Cleric currently enjoys?
Yes, all three of the resurrection spells across the priests will have the experience restoration component.
Okay. Excuse me if I butcher some names here. Gilder Vane wants to know, will all the Shaman abilities be based on nature magic?
No, they will not. So the Shaman abilities are broken up into, if we're talking about the dots or the kind of the offensively oriented spells, we've got the crown line of dots, which we showed today, which is fire-based, not nature. We've got the Animus line of dots, which is poison-based, not nature. The water line is nature-based. And so through your dots, you will have the poison, the fire, and the nature effects. The cool thing about the Shaman 2 is they're one of the few classes that are actually going to be able to provide chemical protection. Chemical is actually a resist type as well. And there is a distinction between chemical damage and poison damage. And the Shaman is able to create protection against both. And interestingly enough, rogues also use both. Rogues use poison and chemical damage and effects and procs and all kinds of things like that, intentionally to kind of have both of those angles to use when they're choosing how to best be deadly.
Okay, I'm going to definitely butcher this one. Mavius Oel wants to know, will there be a limit to debuffs and dots present on a target? So kind of an important question. In short, will multiple Shamans be able to put every single Bane on an enemy, and would the same Bane stack?
Banes will stack, yes. Debuffs will not in every case. There'll be some exceptions with some of the debuff lines, but the Banes, yes, they will stack from Shaman to Shaman.
Shag Nasty wants to know, Hurry the Past states that all healing overtime abilities on you and all your group members will instantly finish, in quotes. Will this be limited to only HOTS applied by the Shaman, or will it affect HOTS cast from other priests in the group /raid? Yeah,
okay. This is a good distinction. I know there's been some confusion about the way that ability description was worded. Hurry the Past is going to finish the duration and front load the remaining heal of your HOTS. Not other Shaman's HOTS, not any HOTS that are having been applied by their classes, your HOTS. Now, that's in its base form. Happens through mastery upgrades, we'll yet to see. But the core intention and design of that ability is that you would be able to activate the ability. It instantly finishes the remaining duration on any of your HOTS that you have active, and combines the heal amount left into a single burst of healing. It's an incredibly powerful ability, and as such, it's going to have a cooldown to match. It's not the kind of thing where you're just going to, load up HOTS, use Hurry the Pass, load up HOTS, use Hurry the Pass. Hurry the Pass is an exceptionally powerful ability that will have to be used, at the right time.
We really have a limited time now. I do see a couple of good questions. So TV asks if Fireclaw will stack with other procs. And
yes, it will.
Specifically, all other procs?
Not all of the procs. So you're going to probably see procs kind of lumping themselves into a group based on the damage type that they are. What I would like to see is kind of whatever the primary proc is, either in terms of like its level. If Fireclaw is the most powerful proc that you have, then other procs from other damage types would also be able to be applied, but their damage contribution would be kind of folded up into that primary proc as the parent, so to speak. And so you're going to be able to, really see those proc effects padded, if you will. But that's kind of the planned approach, the planned implementation, and then, we'll I'm sure that there's going to be a way to make that interesting. So we'll continue to kind of build in, whatever constraints we need to. But I think that works best in situations where there's multiple types of procs. Obviously, if you've got a percent chance to proc as well, you're not going to see everything procking at the same time. And so I think what we'll most likely do in those situations is we'll have one proc able to be represented based on the damage type of the proc.
Let's do two more questions. I'll ask one, and then Ronak, I'm sure you have one from the forums as well. Phantasm 101, it's a good question. Will we be able to see what steps 2 and 3 of the mastery system are prior to investing into that ability?
Sorry, I was so distracted by your
by my
your pronunciation.
Threw you right off. So
repeat the question.
Phantasm 101's asking if we can see what the Mastery Point 2 and Mastery Point 3 will do prior to investing in Mastery Point 1.
Yes, absolutely. We actually we talked about putting what that, when I talked about the right hand side of the page for the codex, that's part of what you will see there. You're going to be able to see all the ability details. There's going to be a mastery tab that that's where you'll actually do your mastery point investment. You're not going to, like, right now we hold control and left click on the ability to bring up that little dialog box to invest the point. Once that new component is in, you'll actually do the point investment right there in the codex, and you'll be able to see in the section underneath where the points are put in, you'll be able to see all 3 of the tiers, how many points they cost, and what the actual effect is. So you'll know before you invest anything where it's ultimately going.
All right, Ronak, last question.
Oh man, there's so many good ones. Maybe we'll have to have you go on some of the forums, Joppa, and answer some of these. But
yeah, swing by the forums, guys. PantheonMMO.com.
Kane wants to know, in regards to the perception system, will shamans discover unique perception pings from the dead and or ancestors, especially after some type of ritual?
Yeah, all of the classes will have their own class flavored aspects of the perception system, and that's part of the draw of the system, and part of the fun in designing it and building it is that it adds both for the race and the class those just deeply fundamental aspects of your character. You're going to see several points of content and experiences based on your class within the perception system. don't want to speak yet to if it will be exactly what was described in the question as far as rituals and things like that. But obviously, ancestry, time, age walking, those things is a huge part of the Pantheon Shaman, and so you can expect to see that in the flavor of the perception content for sure.
Awesome.
Well, thanks again.
We talk about the investoring in Pantheon.
Investoring in Pantheon. Yeah, as you guys know, Pantheon is crowdfunded. All of your pledges go directly into development. Swing on by pantheonmmo.com/join, see what we have available there. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Just a quick announcement. Next week, some of you who have pledged for the Name an NPC reward will be receiving an email with instructions on how to submit your names for NPCs. So expect that to come next week. And I think that's it for all of us. Chris, Ronik, anything you want to sign out as with?
Take care of yourselves, everybody.
That's exciting.
Yeah, take care all. Thanks for coming, and have a great week.
See you guys. Thanks so much.
Turd Ferguson, do it. Well, that was a massive dump of information, and in the best way possible. Just real quick, I'll go over some of the highlights for me anyway. Because like Kelem, I just saw in chat that he just headed out because he has to get up early for work tomorrow, and I unfortunately have to do the same. But there was actually a lot of good information in this stream. I was pleasantly surprised. I think it more or less made up for missing out on last week. There was some really interesting things. First, and the first thing that jumped out to me was when they switched into the game itself. I'm 99% sure that they were in the Tower of the Reckless Magician, but also noticeably there was some changes. I could tell even just from that one angle of that one room that we were looking at, like the walls and the floors and a lot of the environment looked quite different from the last time we saw it, which, looking at the calendar, was almost 3 years ago now, which is insane. But I think it supports the notion that, like we saw in Amber Fate, these zones that even if we don't see them very often, it shows that there's still at least some progress happening on those behind the scenes, which I think is worth noting anyway. Second thing that stuck out to me is they were talking about in the codex, there's no more down ranking. So if you get an ability that is a direct upgrade to a prior ability as you're leveling up, you no longer have access to that lesser version of the ability, which to me is actually kind of disappointing, because so in past games when I play healers, especially at a high level, it's very valuable to become obsessive over mana efficiency, especially in games where mana is hard to come by. Like, I came from DDO, where you couldn't just sit and regen mana. You either had to use expensive mana potions, or you had to find a specific rest shrine somewhere in the dungeon to get your mana back. And so that really trained me to have multiple healing options available, so that I wasn't ever overhealing and overspending mana. So, if somebody was at 70% health and I just kind of wanted to top them off, I would maybe hit a lower level heal just to give them the amount of health that they needed, without spending any more mana than I had to. So to me, removing down ranking, yes, it is less clutter in your spell book, which is worth something, but I think it's also less efficient, and almost kind of in doing that lowers the skill ceiling maybe a little bit, because again, like the more advanced players will really like micro down into like figuring out the exact mana efficiency, but you just have less options to do that if there's no down ranking. The other thing, the mastery system, which they went into quite a bit of detail, which, as I was wondering, it is kind of just the official name for something that they have been talking about over the past several streams now. But as they start to explain it a little bit more, the more I hear about it, the more I like it. And I'll probably actually have to end up making a full YouTube video kind of breaking it down, because there's a lot to it that I won't just rehash it now. But I did want to mention a thought that I had when they were talking about that, about how you're gaining these mastery points as you level up, and even the paths that you take as you're leveling up might affect how quickly you're accumulating those mastery points. And something that stuck out to me was that could be an opportunity to mitigate like the detrimental effects of power leveling. I like power leveling, having that option, but I hope, and it seems to be the case, that you will be pretty significantly penalized for doing that, just organically, by the fact that if you're not actually playing your character and learning your character, you're not going to be prepared for high level content when you get to it. So it's not just a simple fact of like, pull up your alt on your second box and just, get on your main, power level it all the way up to 50, throw some gear on it, and then boom, done. You've got yourself a max level character that's ready for raids. But, and we know, like, yes, you got to actually use your like weapon to level up your slashing skill, which is good. I don't know if that's sufficient enough, but if that combined with the fact that your skills are probably not going to be as your abilities, your abilities aren't going to be as effective as the NPCs at that level are expecting them to be. So you're going to feel pretty underpowered, I would think, if you end up going that power leveling route, which I think is probably a good call. And lastly, along the lines of combat, the situational states and the conditions, like I mentioned this before, that is like to me, that's one of the coolest things that they have revealed in recent memory. The potential for not only comboing off yourself, but also that just collaboration between your group members too. Like that sounds fun. I can't wait to dig into that a little bit more, because some games where like if it's too combo focused, then your attention just becomes completely about doing your combos and doing the rotations just to maximize your DPS and stuff. So hopefully it doesn't get too much into that. Some of the games that have these more like complicated like chaining, like ability chains and stuff like that, can tend to get a little just convoluted and kind of take you out of it becomes more of like an arcade game rather than actual like feeling it like you're in a world. So hopefully this is intuitive enough and simple enough that provides that like dopamine rush of when you can like hit that combo without it just becoming its own like mini game, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, some people though, if especially if they're not familiar with Pantheon, they might look at the combat and be like, that's really dry. I think that's one example of a system or a layer that they've been talking about for a while. Like, yeah, we're gonna, the auto attack and abilities and stuff. That's the foundation of the combat, and then you add on these additional layers to make it more deep and complex and just interesting. Like, it's supposed to be, supposed to be a strategic combat game. So, those conditions, I think, are one of the ways that they can start to make things more interesting like that. So, yeah, overall, good stuff for sure. I just saw Chemical says, "Hey Baz, have you read or heard anything on our characters sheathing their weapons when out of combat? I hate games that don't do that. Just a personal pet peeve." Yeah, that's understandable. If I remember correctly, they have said that they would like that it's kind of a pet peeve for them as well. But it's one of those things that it's just going to become later, because it's purely an aesthetic thing. And so the refinement of those sorts of animations would come much later. That's like a beta or maybe even after release type thing. Again, if my memory serves correctly. Yeah, the mastery, the way that you earn mastery points, I want to see it in action. He mentioned some cool different ways that it's not just about like, doing quests and killing things. It sounds like there's some other ways that you can accumulate them. So, and that it won't just be like you get one, mastery point per level, because at that point it's like, why have two separate systems if they're going to be that closely intertwined, But it seems like there's going to be some different ways to gain those mastery points. But and it's I know all the crafters in the community got excited when he mentioned the fact that you can combine these shards together into to basically make mastery points. I'm pretty sure, didn't he say that though, that you could then like sell that to another player, like that would be a tradable item? That concept seems strange to me, like selling ability points. I don't know, that seems a little iffy to me, but I could be wrong. But overall, I'm liking the mastery system the more I hear about it. I was a little skeptical. Not skeptical, it just at my first impressions when they first started talking about it was that it was a little too shallow. But again, we start to, it's all about peeling back those layers to start to learn more about it. It's more like, okay, I can see it. It's cool. Well, with that, guys, I think I'm going to head out because I can feel my eyelids getting more tired. But this was great. This was a great stream. Feels good to be back in the swing of things. And as always, super excited to see a lot of people come out tonight that I haven't seen in a while, hanging out with me. Again, I know you guys, I don't take it for granted that you would choose to be here instead of in the official stream. It really means a lot to me. It's a lot of fun. And I will see you guys again in 2 weeks, if not before then. So have a good night. I'll see you then.